You're supposed to, tell a story well and make people feel, but you're also supposed to do it in a way that, is like safe and respectful for all.
You know, she was so generous as an actress. There were so many times where she would whisper something to me and it would really change the way that I thought about something.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Behavioral Arts. My name is Spidey and I use my degree in sociology and psychology, my certifications in criminal interrogation and body language analysis, and over 10 years experience as an award-winning mentalist to teach people behavioral analysis and practical psychology on stages and television shows all over the world. There are a mess of lawsuits flying around in the aftermath of the movie It Ends With Us, starring Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. Lively started with a complaint, then a lawsuit against Baldoni as well as Wayfarer Studios for a list of things including harassment and retaliation. Baldoni responded with a $250 million libel lawsuit against the New York Times, who he claims cowered to the wants and whims of Blake Lively and published an incomplete and out of context story of the events that happened on set. Now, I've been getting a lot of requests to cover this topic, and because it's a very sensitive topic and there are a lot of accusations going back and forth, I have to be very selective, because to do what I do, I need to see footage of the involved individuals talking about these topics. Not texts, not written statements, not their lawyers talking about it. I need to see footage of them addressing these things. Now, luckily, one of the topics that's come up a lot in these lawsuits and on social media are the behaviors during some of the more intimate scenes of the movie when they were being filmed. Another thing that's coming up a lot is the use or the absence of an intimacy coordinator, which is a very important person to have while filming a movie like this. Now, luckily, these topics are things that both Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively did discuss in some of their interviews. And there are a lot of really interesting behaviors and word choice, things that they're saying that might give away what was actually happening on that set and clear out some of the confusion around what was going on and this intimacy coordinator. And in this video, that's what we're going to look at. We're going to look at their facial expressions, body language, and word choice to try to figure out what they're really thinking, what was going on that set, and what is happening with this intimacy coordinator. Let's dive right in.
The chemistry with Justin also was off the chart. And Blake, you always have a vision. So talk to me about how sometimes you were even the intimacy coordinator in some of those sexier scenes. Like we saw you.
That shouldn't be happening, by the way. I just want to be clear that you should not be the intimacy coordinator. You should definitely hire intimacy coordinators, which we did have, thank goodness.
All right, so that's an interview that Blake Lively did with one of her co-stars, as well as the author of the book It Ends With Us, with Access Hollywood, while they were promoting the movie. And it's interesting because as the topic of intimacy coordinator came up, the interviewer was under the impression that Blake had to play the role of intimacy coordinator on set on numerous occasions. And before we look at the content of what's being discussed and what the whole big deal is with this intimacy coordinator, let's look at her nonverbal communication really quick because it's really interesting. When the interviewer says that Blake had to play the role of intimacy coordinator for some of these scenes, we see a ton of stuff from Blake Lively as a reaction. Let's start with the eyebrows. This is a part of the body that I pay a lot of attention to and there's a lot of research on. And the research shows that conversationally, when those eyebrows go up, typically it falls into one of three categories. Either some kind of social acknowledgement or social approval. The second is emphasis, to emphasize something. And the third is surprise, when we're surprised by something. And all three of these things have something in common. We use the eyebrows to give importance to something. They're like the exclamation point of the face. And a lot of researchers even believe that we gained more mobility in our eyebrows as we evolved because they're so vital in telling people what's important non-verbally. So we really tell people, now this is important when we raise our eyebrows. So as Blake said, that should not be happening, by the way. We saw those eyebrows go up, and in the way that she held them up with the eyes opening up as well, that looks very consistent with surprise. Because with surprise, everything opens up because we're trying to take in as much information as we can to gauge how to react. It could also be emphasis. That should not be happening. They're very close and they both signal the same thing. This is really important. It should not be happening that way. You'll notice as the eyes open and the eyebrows go up, she doesn't deliver this important message to the interviewer. She looks right at the camera and delivers it to the millions of viewers who are watching this. So this is an important message that she wants everyone to know. This isn't normal. You'll also notice at the same time, her hand comes up and does this across gesture outwards like this. That shouldn't be happening, by the way. And it goes across like this with the palm not all the way out like this, but pointing outwards. Now, the orientation of the palm is also very highly researched, and it's not universal. Different cultures orient their palms in different directions as they communicate. With that said, pretty much everywhere in the world, when the hand shoots up with the palm pointing away from the body, this is a sign of negation, also called stop gestures. And sometimes it's even a reflex. When something happens that startles us, the hand pops up like this to try to stop it. And everywhere in the world, this is recognized. Now, the research also shows that even if it's not all the way out like this, but it's combined with what we call an oscillating gesture, which means a gesture that goes side to side like this, this is also recognized as negation pretty much universally. So it doesn't have to be all the way up like this, trying to get attention or stopping or something like that. It could just be this, and that's also a negation. And right here, that's what we're getting. So we have this big important emphasis to the viewing audience that this should not be happening. You should always hire an intimacy coordinator, which they did. Which seems like a bizarre answer because she's making this big deal about how, no actress should ever play the role of intimacy coordinator. And then she said that they did have one on set. Now, this caused a lot of chatter on social media because in her complaint against Justin Baldoni and Wayfarer Studios, there were several sections that mentioned that there was not an intimacy coordinator on set. But here she is talking about how they did hire one. To further mess this up, Justin Baldoni shared some texts where he was talking to Blake about meetings with the intimacy coordinator, and a lot of people have a lot of questions about this. So let's clear things up a little bit. So let's start by looking at Blake Lively's complaint as it relates to this specific topic. So if we look here next to number 30, it says, Wayfarer failed to adhere to guild rules as well as Miss Lively's contract and standard industry safety protocols with respect to nudity and intimate scenes. Further down, it says, such safeguards ignored by Wayfarer include. Then it lists the things that they ignored, and all the way at the bottom, the last one on the next page, it says, and the use of intimacy coordinators to observe intimate scenes. So here she's saying that the studio and Justin Baldoni as the director failed to adhere to certain rules. One of those rules is the presence of an intimacy coordinator. So just put a pin in that for now. In the very next section, it says, Mr. Baldoni improvised physical intimacy that had not been rehearsed, choreographed, or discussed with Miss Lively with no intimacy coordinator involved. So once again here she's mentioning that there were moments where he improvised certain scenes or did certain things a certain way, and there was not an intimacy coordinator on set. Now, in his lawsuit against the New York Times, to show that they didn't paint a full picture of what's going on, Justin Baldoni shared a text exchange between him and Blake Lively that he took a screenshot of and sent to one of the producers on the movie, and here's what we saw in that screenshot. Justin texted Blake, just hired intimacy coordinator who I love, will set you up to meet/FaceTime with her next week for intro. To this, Blake Lively responded, I feel good, I can meet her when we start, smiley face, thank you though. And so he took that and he sent it to one of the producers saying, just wanted to tell you about this. Seems she doesn't want to meet intimacy coordinator until we start, which may mess up the workflow, but I could still meet with her, of course. To which the female producer said, that's fine, we'll figure it out. So a lot of people are taking this text and are running with the idea that, oh my God, in her complaint, Blake said that there wasn't an intimacy coordinator, but here she is being told that there was one and she didn't want to meet with her, so she's lying in her complaint. So we have to clear a couple of things up. First off, Justin Baldoni was presenting these texts to fight the narrative of the New York Times, not of Blake Lively's official complaint. If we look at the specifics of Blake Lively's official complaint, it doesn't say in any place that there wasn't an intimacy coordinator hired at all for the project. It's saying that there were certain scenes and certain moments where Justin Baldoni improvised certain things and there wasn't an intimacy coordinator present at that moment. And this is a very important distinction. Intimacy coordinators are more like consultants than the director of a movie. They're not there for every day on set for filming everything. There are times where they're there, they have meetings before they start to film, there are certain rehearsals that they're present for, but their time is slotted. They come in for this and that, and this discussion, and that meeting, and this scene. So the fact that she was offered to meet with one, the fact that she confirmed in an interview that they had hired one, doesn't directly negate what she's saying in the complaint specific to those scenes and those moments. Now, I'm not saying she's lying or telling the truth, or he's lying or telling the truth about what happened while they were filming this scene on set. All I'm saying is for all the people who are convinced that there's big contradiction between what she said in this interview and what's in this text versus what's in the complaint, there really isn't a big contradiction. It makes perfect sense that she knew these people were available, that they had hired these people, but they weren't present during those specific scenes.
Well, thank
You were
goodness.
teaching Justin how to pull you in.
Where have you
loved
seen
that.
this?
That
I
clip.
actually just saw it too. It was on
Really?
Instagram yesterday, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, like, you know, romance is really important. You're supposed to, you know, tell a story well and make people feel, but you're also supposed to do it in a way that, yeah, is like safe and respectful for all.
Whoa. So here's a really big tip for communication and reading people. Whenever you ask someone a question and in their answer they volunteer something that had nothing to do with what you asked, you could bet a lot on the fact that this is a very important topic for them and they really want to talk about this. They have something to say about this. And that's what happened here. And it's not all that happened here. A lot went on. So the interviewer is saying that on social media, she saw footage of Blake showing Justin how to pull her in. And notice what Blake says. She goes, "Where have you seen this?"
Well, thank
You were
goodness.
teaching Justin how to pull you in.
Where have you
loved
seen
that.
this?
And we often talk about the use of the word "this" on the channel. Conversationally, it tends to be a little dismissive. Imagine if you came to me and you said, you bought a new car. And I go, oh yeah, well, where is this new car? It's almost like I'm dismissing it. I don't really believe it. Oh, where is this fancy new car? Where is this footage you speak of? Almost like disbelief or dismissive. Now, in this case, the author, Colleen, jumps in and says that she also saw this footage. So while Blake is trying to dismiss it, like, what are you talking? What is this footage? Colleen goes, oh yeah, I actually saw that too. And Blake turns to her and softly says, really? Like, okay, now there's two of them. So now it's a lot more substantial.
That
I
clip.
actually just saw it too. It was on
Really?
Instagram yesterday, I think. Yeah.
And we kind of see her look down with this nervous chuckle as she's trying to think of what to do next, because she tried to shut it down, but now that's not so much an option. What follows as she's trying to deal with what was said has a lot of different words in behavioral analysis. Some call it word salad, some call it verbal leaks, some call it a version of a non-answer statement. I call it fluff. Basically saying things without really getting much of a point across. So here she's faced with this thing that, oh, this footage is out there, and here's what she says. Yeah, I mean, I think that, like, you know, romance is really important.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, like, you know, romance is really important.
So all this hesitation, you know, like, romance is really important, which I don't think is this big point that she was trying to make. I think she's just trying to buy time. And from there she goes, you're supposed to, you know, tell a story well and make people feel, but you're also supposed to do it in a way that's safe and respectful for all. So that's where she ends up with it. But it's almost like she's answering a question that wasn't asked. She wasn't asked, you know, what's important to you when filming these romantic scenes? What's important to you when she was asked about this scene, this moment where she was showing Justin Baldoni how to do something, and after some hesitation, falling apart, her mind almost pushed her into a certain direction, and she let this thing come out where you're supposed to do it in a way that's safe and respectful for all. Look, hindsight is 20/20, right? We can all take the lens of what we know is happening now, apply it to this and go, okay, well, it's very clear what was happening. When being asked about intimacy scenes between her and Justin, her mind went more towards these thoughts of, you know, not being respected, which are all in her complaint now. So that's what's coming out here when she's talking about this. She's shutting down the fact that there was this chemistry where she was showing him how to pull her in, and she's going more towards this, you know, falling apart, and in trying to come up with an answer, letting her cards show, and those cards are that there was something here about a lack of respect, according to the way she's telling it. I want to talk about something that we saw in both scenes that we just looked at, and it's the fact that she's stroking her hair. So her hair is draped to the side, and we see her hand go and play around with her hair. And a lot of people are going to jump on the fact that this looks like something that the research calls adapters, pacifiers, manipulators, or self-soothing gestures, which are any type of repetitive massage-like gesture, and this could be with the hair, it could be on the face, it could be on the arms, it could be on the legs, that tends to soothe us in moments of stress or anxiety. But the important thing to note here is that it's 100% part of her baseline. And baseline means behaviors that we're observing consistently in someone throughout a conversation, regardless of if it's a stressful topic or not. From the beginning of this interview, as she was talking, she was playing around with her hair like that, and it's not like it spiked at certain times, it was consistent throughout. It's very important to be mindful of things like this with behavioral analysis because it's one of the biggest contributors for people to feed their bias, to only look for things in that moment because they need to find things and they spot certain things but don't realize that it was happening throughout. So they might stand and go, oh, look at the way she's stroking her hair. She's stressed about this, and whatever they need that to mean, whether it's, oh, she's being deceptive or, she's being honest, she's really stressed about what she experienced on set. They only look at that as a sign of that stress, but it was happening throughout. So does it mean she was stressed throughout the whole interview, or does it mean that she was just playing around with her hair? It's hard to tell. I don't know, but it's part of baseline, so it doesn't mean much in this case. Okay, now we're gonna look at footage of Justin Baldoni talking about some of these topics, as well as working with Blake, and a segment from an interview that he did that blew my mind as it relates to these lawsuits. But before we do me a huge favor, hit that subscribe button, turn those notifications on for more behavioral analysis and practical psychology content. And for those of you who are on Facebook, we recently launched the Behavioral Arts Facebook page, which is a really great place where you could post videos or topics that you find that you think are interesting for everyone to discuss right there on the page. I'll also be posting some short videos there as well. It's been a lot of fun. So if you're on Facebook, please check it out. I'll leave a link in the description and in the top pinned comment.
How was working with Blake, and were you impressed with her work ethic?
As I've said before, Blake is so creative and she works so hard, and this movie, it wouldn't have been the same without her.
Would you be interested in a sequel?
I've been hearing the sequel, the conversations, people ask me all the time about sequels. We are in this place where we are just trying to be in the moment, and I'm just overwhelmed with gratitude for the lives that this has impacted and changed. So we're not even thinking about a sequel right now.
Okay, so I want to reiterate something. Hindsight is 2020. And the reason I wanted to start with this clip is because this is a clip that's been shared on several different platforms, and a lot of people in the comments are becoming behavioral analysts in saying that, oh, look, in the way that he squinted as he was saying how creative she is, and he smiled after he complimented her, he doesn't mean it. That's duping the light. I read about duping the light in an article online. When people lie, they smile. So let's talk about these things. Of course, hindsight is 2020, and if we now know that there's some kind of conflict, we can go back and start looking for these little micro details. If you showed me this clip before and you said, okay, what's going on here? What do we see in the behaviors? There really isn't that much. We have a guy talking about a coworker, and yeah, in the beginning when he says that she's very creative and she works so hard, we see this bit of a squint, but I've often said in my videos that we often squint when we impart wisdom on someone. And I'm not making that up right now because it's convenient. I've said this very consistently. You might say something to someone like, does that make sense? Or do you get what I'm saying? And you kind of squint like this when you're trying to get a point across and go, is this registering with you? So this is a very common thing that we see. So yeah, does squinting sometimes happen with unpleasantness or scrunching? Yes, it does. But you're forcing current knowledge into past behaviors when you say that that's why that must be happening in that moment. Then we have this movie wouldn't have been the same without her, with a bit of a smile and a slight little exhale from the nose right at the end of that answer.
This movie, it wouldn't have been the same without her.
Would you be interested in a sequel?
And duping the light is such a funny thing because duping the light is basically, some research has shown that some people, when they're being deceptive, there's a very quick little smile. It's very subtle and it's associated with the excitement of getting away with the deception. But people take this and run with it, and every time they see a smile, when they need someone to be lying, they go, duping the light, duping the light, duping the light. 1,000 things can make us smile. This is why I rarely call out duping the light, and almost never out of a cluster. So if I'm seeing a lot of different things and I'm also seeing a bit of a quick smile in there, I might throw duping the light in there. But to see an isolated smile does not always mean duping the light. We smile when we're excited. We smile when we're nervous and we're trying to deal with it. We smile in social situations. We smile when we're happy. We smile in interviews. When we're done the answer, we kind of smile, okay, back to you now. So is it possible that this is duping the light, that he doesn't really feel that way? Is it possible that he's self-satisfied, that he was able to give a politically correct answer? Now, okay, let's move on from that. I did good. Let's move on from that. All these things are possible, and with the benefit of hindsight, we could go back and go, okay, maybe that's what's going on, but it's very presumptuous to just look at that and go, oh yeah, that's for sure duping the light. He's lying. He hates her. He's lying. Now, the second part of that answer, how he's asked if he's thinking about the sequel, and he kind of evades that topic in saying that, we're not even thinking about the sequel right now. We're just focusing on the positivity. I would say there's a little bit more to look into that one, just a little bit, because if this was a really exciting project, if this went really, really well, and he had the time of his life, and he wouldn't hesitate to do this again, we'd probably get an answer more along those lines. I'd absolutely do a sequel. So maybe, yes, again, with hindsight, with the benefit of hindsight, the fact that, he's asked about the sequel, and he says, he starts by saying a lot of people are talking about a sequel, and then at the end he goes, we're not really thinking about a sequel. There's a bit of an inconsistency there, because if a lot of people are talking about it, then you've thought about a sequel, and if you have this prepared answer, you've thought about a sequel. So maybe there's a little bit more there, but again, not an enormous amount. If you showed me this and I didn't know everything that's going on, I would go, yeah, there seems to be some kind of resistance towards a sequel. Maybe he wants to focus on other projects, or maybe he feels like he did what he had to do, or maybe something happened, he doesn't want to do a thing. So yeah, a little bit more on this one, but again, hindsight really helps.
We do have It Starts With Us, so I'm hoping to see you back in the double duty role.
I think there are better people for that one.
Justin.
I think Blake Lively's ready to direct. That's what I think. So.
Okay, that one maybe a little bit more. Again, we have hindsight, but that one just a little bit more. I feel like we're getting some kind of indications on that one. And if you showed me that and I didn't know what was going on, I would go, okay, I have a couple of questions. I think at most I have a couple of questions. So first, you'll notice that this time his answer has changed from we're not even thinking to a sequel to saying, I think there are other people better suited for that. So it's pretty much a no. We also see a lot of evading with the eyes. So whereas typically if you look at almost any interview, he makes good eye contact, he looks at the person, here he kind of looks away and like he's trying to get away from this question. So we do see that a little bit. And then at the end, when he says, I think Blake Lively is ready to direct, that's what I think. There's almost a little bit of sass to that.
Justin.
I think Blake Lively's ready to direct. That's what I think. So, yeah.
And I wouldn't know that it's, confrontation, because I might say this with a group of friends almost in a sassy way. Like, I think he's ready to take on that challenge, kind of like that. So I wouldn't necessarily know that, but there does seem to be a little bit of a sass or a sarcasm to, yeah, I think she's ready to direct now. And it could just be humor. Again, we'd have to see the whole vibe of this conversation. It could just be him in a good mood, kind of just, throwing a bit of humor in there. I think she's ready to direct. But I would say, again, there's just a little bit more in this one that we're seeing, that there's some kind of, I don't really want to do that again. And I think this is Blake's thing now.
Even direct yourself. That's what was going through my mind, because you just nailed it every scene.
You surround yourself with people that are smarter than you. I had an incredible team, and an incredible group of women around me. And honestly, directing myself, a lot of that had to do with, the brilliance of Blake Lively and being able to act with this powerhouse and react in real time. And she was so generous as an actress. And there were so many times where she would whisper something to me and it would really change the way that I thought about something.
So that's an interview that he did with Access Hollywood. And there's a segment in this interview, we haven't seen it yet, we're about to, that gave me such a big light bulb moment as it pertains to this case. But I want to talk really quickly about this portion in the beginning, and a gesture that we see that I think is the biggest myth in body language out there. So in the beginning, as he's saying that he surrounds himself with people smarter than himself, we see him doing this. So there's a shrug and he does this as he says that. Now, one of the things I see very often on social media comments is people who go, oh, look, he didn't know with his head as he was making a statement, he's lying. So the moment anyone does this while they're saying something, it's a lie. So first of all, there isn't a single gesture on this planet that you could see someone do that allows you to know that they're lying right away. We need to see a cluster of behaviors that deviate from baseline, and even at that, we can never be certain. It just gives us a bit of a direction. Least of all, this gesture. This can mean so many things. We do this in disbelief. Somebody says something, you can't believe it. We say it in disapprovals. You hear somebody did something and, oh man, I wish it wasn't like that. So disappointment, all these different things. And believe it or not, we sometimes even use it to confirm something. So I always go back to an example where I was at a restaurant with my cousin and he asked if he can replace something by something else. I don't know, potatoes by, I don't remember. But I remember the waitress going, absolutely, as she was making the note. She was doing a no gesture. And that's a nonverbal way of saying, no problem at all. There's nothing wrong with that. That's easy. So yeah, don't worry about it. And here, it could very well be that, right? As he's saying that he surrounds himself with people who are smarter than him, it could simply be, it's not very difficult. That's just how I do it. It's not, it's not a tough answer. It's not hard to do that. So It's possible. Could it be inner conflict? Could it be disagreement? It can be. With a couple more questions, we'd see if he truly feels that way, but there are other possibilities is what I'm saying. This is also consistent, by the way, with that shrug that he does with that no gesture. The research on shrugging shows that it denotes a disengagement. I don't something. I don't know, I don't care, I don't want to do that, and often I don't really know what to say. This is called an epistemic shrug. So in this case, it's very possible he's just going, yeah, I don't know what to say. It's not that difficult. I surround myself with smarter people than myself. So think about how, let's say you're a magician or a mentalist and you want to get more bookings, and you were to tell me, hey, so is it as simple as like getting out there and hustling and showing people what I've got and I'll get more bookings? I might go, yeah, just keep at it. So basically, yeah, I don't know what to say. It's that easy. There's nothing more to it. Just do that. So as a confirmation, it does make a lot of sense. I want you to notice at the end as he's talking about Blake Lively, and he talks about how generous she was and how she would whisper something to him and that would change the way he would do the scene. We see that same squint that we saw earlier in that other interview. And as I said, this is imparting wisdom. And it's funny because here he's talking about how she would impart wisdom on him. So this kind of curiosity, this kind of learning or teaching is very consistent with these kinds of squints. And we're seeing it here with him consistently once again. So, again, this is an opportunity where a lot of people are going to look at this clip and go, oh, look at the way he's squinting while he talks about her and he's looking away and we see this scrunching. But to be very honest, to me, it looks like he's genuinely talking about working with Blake and learning from Blake and focusing on that dynamic that they had where he got to learn from her as an actress. So did he have other grievances at the time? Was there interpersonal conflict? Maybe there was, but as he talks about her professionally here, it seems like he's genuinely appreciating parts of their professional relationship. I don't think there's much to look into here to suggest that, oh, there's this really deeply hidden negative thing.
And Ryle's such a complex character. I didn't want to just jump in and out. And so there were times when I was trying something because I didn't know exactly how far I wanted to take an emotion or a feeling with Ryle. And as I would try something in a scene, I would watch as Ryle, Blake playing Lily, react in a way that I didn't see before. And then I was able to go, oh, I went too far. And then I could pull it back because she's such a wonderful listener. So having her as a scene partner just, made me better.
Okay, that was it. That was my big aha moment as it pertains to this lawsuit. And I think that there's something here that we have to give enormous consideration for, regardless of what side we're on. I think everyone involved, everyone who's interested in this case, needs to think about this and consider it from both angles. There's a lot going on with this, and we'll try to present it in an organized way. And to do that, we're going to ignore the nonverbal communication because there's some really interesting stuff, but the real value is in what he's saying. So he says that there were times when he was filming that he didn't know exactly how far I wanted to take an emotion or a feeling with Ryle. Then he says that I would watch as Ryle, Blake playing Lily, react in a way I didn't see before. So first of all, there's a clue there. I would watch as Ryle. So he's stepping into this role. And that gives us a bit of a clue that part of the way that he acts is method acting. And method acting means instead of saying, okay, I'm going to do this and I'm going to say that, I'm going to deliver it this way, you just step into the character, feel what they feel, become them, and think the way they do and act the way they do. So that's a big clue. Then he says that as he was doing that, as he was watching, as Ryle, Blake playing Lily, he would say, I was able to go, oh, I went too far, and that I could pull it back. And then he says, because she's such a little bit of hesitation, wonderful listener. I think he's aware that he's treading on sensitive waters here because he's talking about becoming this character, Ryle, who, yes, is intimate and sensual and seductive, but also ends up having some serious behavioral issues, which is a major theme in this movie or in this book. So this was a part of my aha moment, right? This guy is giving into a role. He's becoming this person who has certain behavioral issues, and he's testing. What would this guy do? How would he behave? And I could absolutely see that sometimes causing issues as he tries to become this person. This is why it's extremely important to have intimacy coordinators on set, to agree on how far a scene's gonna go and how something's gonna play out. And he's aware of that, and he's trying to be in tune, to try to say, okay, well, maybe I should draw the line there, and we see that kind of awareness there. But I have to wonder, as aware as he is and as respectful as he's communicating about these moments and these scenes, how big of a role does interpretation play when it comes to these things, right? And that's where I realized the big aha moment. With a lot of cases, the accusation is something concrete. This person hit me. This person stole my computer, something like that. And that either happened or it didn't, right? That action either happened or it didn't. In this case, it's very much interpretation based. So it's very possible that in this situation, somebody might be exploring a role or giving into a role, and as respectful as their intentions are, their counterpart might interpret some of that as inappropriate, especially if on that day or in that moment, there isn't an intimacy coordinator present. And I just want everyone who's watching this video to consider that option, that it could be a question simply of interpretation and two things can be true at the same time. Look, many of us have seen that Blake Lively has had some behaviors that weren't the most positive in some interviews. I covered one of those interviews on the channel. I had the interviewer, Kirsty Flaw, on the channel to do a deep dive. I've been accused of being part of Justin Baldoni's smear campaign. So believe me, I know there are people who don't necessarily connect with Blake Lively's character, but it's a very far cry from going to that to saying, no, just because I don't like her, everything she says is a lie, she's always in the wrong. Alternatively, there are people out there who are huge fans of Blake Lively, and again, it's very presumptuous to go, just because I'm a fan of her, because I like her and I like her as an actress and a character, everything she says is the truth, she's telling the truth, he's in the wrong. Both of these things are very presumptuous. To use our opinion of a person to determine whether they're being truthful and everything they're saying is true in this case. And the same applies to Justin Baldoni, by the way. You can like him, you can dislike him, there's nothing wrong with either of those opinions, but it shouldn't skew us considering both stories and what really could have happened on set. Because regardless of what we think of Blake Lively, if she was uncomfortable on set, if things happened that were inappropriate, she 100% should talk about it. And if Justin Baldoni thinks that he's being defamed and that this is unfair and that people are printing things that aren't true and there's a lot more context around this and he did protect himself in places, he should 100% talk about that. They should both talk about their experience. And the truth of the matter is, it's going to come down to other people who were present. Because as it stands right now, there are a lot of accusations flying around and it's her version, his version, and somewhere in the middle of all that, I don't know if it's here, I don't know if it's here, I don't know if it's here, there's the truth. But when we start hearing from people throughout this case, interviews, or if this goes to trial and we see footage of it, other people who were there on set, producers, directors, other actors, we're gonna start to get a much more clear image of what was happening. Were there some inappropriate behaviors from an outside perspective, or are things being exaggerated? But for right now, we have written statements, and who we like or dislike shouldn't determine who we believe and who we don't believe. We can nitpick specific things that she said or that was in the New York Times where it really made it seem like they were trying to paint him a certain way, but then when he gave all the text and the context, you go, oh, okay, well, no, that's not what they were saying, isn't entirely accurate. It was more of this. And with stories like this, that tends to happen a lot, by the way. You go, oh my God. Okay, no, I see what that is. Okay, but, oh no, but wait, this other thing. And then, oh yeah, okay, no, he's explaining that. That makes a lot of sense. So that happens a lot. And at the end of the day, it's hearing them tell the stories and the people who were there telling the stories that's going to really clarify things. All I'm saying is, let's not jump to big conclusions based on personal opinions and small little things that we might catch that say, okay, well, that's not entirely true, doesn't mean that it invalidates the entire way that either person felt. So let's just wait for a little bit more. We can look at the behaviors, we can still discuss, it's a lot of fun, but let's just wait before we form more solid opinions. That's all I'm saying. Okay, before we go, I just want to announce the winner of a contest that we did on the channel a couple of weeks ago. So first of all, I'm very sorry how long it took me to announce the winner of the contest because we did the contest 3 weeks ago on a video with Chase Hughes. We covered the JonBenet Ramsey cold case. It was a great video. If you guys want to check it out, I'll leave a link in the description. But we did a contest to give away a copy of Chase Hughes' new book that has all his work in there, everything that he's worked on. There's some amazing stuff in there. And there were a lot of applicants to the contest, so thank you so much for that. But I got really busy with the holiday season, both with performances and family events, so I didn't have time to look at the contest. But a winner has been selected, and it is Kathy ZX5BU, who says she's watching from the US and has worked in healthcare for 45 years and has used some of what we talked about on the channel to figure out when there was something more to a story when dealing with patients. Congratulations, Kathy. I'm so glad that you're finding use in your professional work with some of the stuff we cover on the channel. Reach out to me through a DM on any social media. If you have Instagram, that's really easy, or Facebook, or just, reply here or to your comment. We'll figure out a way to get in touch, and I will send you a copy of Chase's book. I'm sure you are going to love it. Thank you for everyone who applied. Let me know in the comments what you thought of this week's video, what you think of this whole case, and let's try to keep in mind that this is really a case where there are two different sides of the story, and the truth is probably somewhere in the middle of that. So let me know in the comments what you think of all this, and I will see you on the next one.